Welcome back, everybody, to The Creative Moment, Season 3, Episode 1, the season premiere. We have gone through 2 seasons already with you guys, and we are back with Season 3, back and better than ever. I'm Dante Bullhauer. I'm a photographer.
Jamie Bullhauer, I write.
And we have this podcast together where we talk all things creativity, obviously with it being a focal point in our lives. So with that, let's crack open Season 3.
I'm behind.
Not bad. All right, so today's topic, we are talking about risk. Now, we're going to delve into a little bit of a couple personal stories about risks we've taken in our not even necessarily our creative life, just our lives in general that helped us kind of mold along the way. And then maybe if we have some time, we'll delve into kind of the importance of risk taking in, again, not it obviously has a lot to do with creativity, but just in general kind of thing. So I'll have you go ahead and start. What's your biggest risk ever that you've ever taken?
I have taken some serious risks before, and to keep it a tad on the creative side though, with the correlation or timing of the book Under the Lights getting done and published out into the world was also a personal risk. That was the second time I quit a job without having a backup plan. And part though, and you hear these stories in the writing community and stuff of people just taking that kind of risk and getting things accomplished and it working out in that sense. My writing career didn't really take off. It didn't take off with that novel, but that whole situation, and sometimes maybe that's the aspect of taking a risk. And when we get into the creative part, was I was at a moment in life and I was struggling on all kinds of fronts. And it's not actually an uncommon story for lots of creative people and lots of people. And it pushed, because the book itself had actually, most of the word count had been done for a good couple years. And the whole situation, and I just, it was kind of funny. I'm unemployed and I make the front page of the newspaper,
Unemployed man finds new hope.
Yeah. But it did start the journey that I'm on in regards. Just released the collection of spooky short stories. They're kind of horror, but they're kind of supernatural. And I've gotten 2 reviews already, and just like a lot of, and very positive. But I don't know if that personal risk, will catapult me into writing success per se. I don't know, but it did start this journey, and we're here doing this. We're other things along that line, and that moment was big on all kinds of different fronts, but it had a serious influence for my writing. So
yeah, mine. I've had a couple speaking events this month, so I feel like I'm just beating an old drum. I don't know what you say.
Dead horse.
Yeah, beating a dead horse. Just kind of telling kind of my story. Obviously, I didn't go to college. I went straight to a job with Strive. Right out of high school, essentially. I'd already had kind of that internship with them. So that wasn't necessarily a huge risk. Like, not going to college was not. I wasn't afraid I was going to get kicked out of the house or anything like that. Leaving that job and leaving this stable income. So I ended up actually working 2 jobs whilst just kind of building foundational income. And I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss and do my own thing. Last June was when I decided to go on my own, and it, as a kid still in my. I still feel like very much a 16-year-old kid. I remember sitting right by the entrance to my apartment and like shaking because I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is like this is about to completely flip my life on its head.
He called us a couple times for about this whole thing.
I was so nervous to do all this, and so taking that leap, which I think is a lot of people struggle with, especially in creative. There's not necessarily a stigma, but there is a little bit of you don't make good money in creative jobs. And so taking that leap is something that was really scary, but being able to rely on my confidence in the support system that I had around me. I just talked about that last week with teachers, old teachers reassuring me and a family and friends that all had my back really helped me be able to take that leap, because otherwise I don't know if I would have been able to build up my business during that time to the point where I could have taken that jump. And so going from stable income on salary to every job you get is going to help pay the bills, and if you don't get the job, then you can't pay the bills, like was a really, really dicey decision. And obviously hindsight's 2020. Looking back, I'm glad I did it.
Oh yeah.
And I always knew it would happen eventually, but my goal was always 3 to 5 years. Then I'll have enough income. I'll have enough. Then I'll move out. Then I'll like really delve into my own business. And things just lined up. And I'm like, you know what? We're at the edge of the cliff already. We might as well just jump. So that was a huge risk. And like we talked about, it's not necessarily the stigma around maybe not making any money creatively, but it's something that a lot of creatives battle with.
The hard part, so there's two things that, just as you're talking about. One, whenever taking a huge risk, and sometimes you get those motivational videos and all that, and your life's outside.
Take the jump.
Yeah, and I get that, but one, you already mentioned and already knew, 19 years old and stuff, that one of the temptations about this life and the creative world is having security. And hopefully we'll get to that a little bit later, but having a job that helps you pay the bills, and in my case, raise 6 kids, and I've quit a job twice without having a backup plan, and it has always worked out, but oh my gosh, how do you just go, how do I do this? What happens if I fall? And the problem is you could, you kind of remember how the pantry was pretty bare for, but then also there is just the aspect of not having that plan B mindset, and it's true to a degree. And I don't always think that those inspirational videos and talks and are 100% the path you need to take. And I just can't remember the title of the book. It was one about chasing your dreams, but not destroying the people around you while you do it. And then in your case, you're at that juncture of having the time and the opportunity that, honestly, if you did fall, we were going to be there. People were going to be there. If I, honestly, to a degree, and it might be why my writing career never hasn't, or whatever, is if I really fell, there would be a lot of casualties, and it's a hard decision to make. We still made it. I mean, I did not have a job, and it was tough. We didn't fall, but it, took some time and found another job and stuff, and and I think people, though, that fear, facing that, and you don't know if the creative part will pay off because there's so many
variables that, especially now, you don't even have I don't even have a grasp on what I can and can't control audience wise on social media. And your audience, I see a lot of people post in this Facebook group that I'm in about just Nebraska photographers, talking about how people want more budget friendly this, or people are undercutting my prices. And I ended up making a comment on one of those posts like, you are only worth what people will pay you for. And so evaluating that market and stuff has definitely been a challenge for me, and also kind of inserts some of that risk of, okay, if I raise my prices here, I won't have to do as many jobs, but there's a chance that more clients will turn me down because it's too expensive or whatever. Whereas I could lower them, get more clients, but end up doing more work and maybe missing out on bigger opportunities because I don't have as much time, things like that.
Yep.
But there's this, I just quote audiobooks all the time now, I guess. I don't know. But
Hey, I'm just glad you're back into books.
In the knowledge realm. Yeah, so there's a quote in The Magic of Thinking Big that says, to wait for the perfect conditions to take action is to wait forever. And obviously, in your situation, having 6 kids and a wife and a house and a mortgage and all that, it doesn't need to be perfect conditions, but they've got to be pretty sunny. I mean, there can't be a tornado warning, and you're taking that risk. But the conditions for me taking that risk were pretty favorable, but they will never be perfect to do anything. And so just kind of having that perspective of, there's always, if you're looking for reasons not to do something, you're going to find them. If you're looking for reasons to do something, you're going to find them as well. And so,
but I think part of that is those reasons are really deep and central to who you are. And that's a part of that risk, because you can feel like if you fail at that moment, that it's about you. And it's not. It's not about your skill set or it's just, the creative life is hard. It's, and that's that part, because you have to then, because you mentioned this though, it's not that you have to believe in yourself like 100% and like but you got to believe in your dreams. And dreams don't pay the rent, though. Yep. It's tough. It's not an easy thing to do.
And it's something that comes across my mind quite a bit. So, like, waking up in the morning and just thinking, like, okay, I don't really want to work today, but you know what? If I get into this routine, this kind of mode of, I'm not really feeling it, whatever. I'm just not going to make as much money, therefore my dream gets farther away, that it starts to become more of a risk to keep going if I continue to kind of slack off and not do my job. But that was my biggest, when I was talking to people just a couple weeks kind of leading up to that decision to go full-time freelancer, I was like, first of all, a job at Wendy's will always be there. I'll always be, like, if I, for some reason, had to go back, and I was blessed, the bosses that I had, I'm sure would work something out with me if I needed to go back there. But I always knew that there would be a partial safety net, and so that helped me. But then also that believing in your dream, and I knew if I was ever going to accomplish the dream of freelancing, at some point I had to take the jump.
Yeah.
And another quote, Magic Thinking Big, it's action destroys fear. And this is something that I've very much tried to implement into my life, because easy way to procrastinate is when you are scared of doing something, scared of putting in the work. And if you just start doing it, that fear will just end up fizzling out, because you're just doing it. You're not thinking. The more you think about doing it, the more you worry about doing it, the harder it's going to be to actually execute it. And so the longer that you maybe put off a risk that you're thinking about taking in that world, the farther away it's going to seem, and the harder it's going to be to actually end up making that jump, instead of just actually taking the action and just saying, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go a little bit deeper. I'll quote for King and Country: "Find faith in the battle." And as it connects back to being in your skill set, your creative dream, I did not, and this connects a little bit to another aspect of taking the risk, which I hope we talk to a little bit about why. So I, again, just released a short story collection of kind of spooky stories. I've got poetry, I've got some blogs, I got a non-fit, and then this is something just it's totally different. But it's stories. Some of them are very, very new, but I've had a couple that I've had for a while, and I was like, I think my storytelling is kind of cool. I'm kind of a different horror. It's not slasher or anything. It's suspenseful. It tweaks the norm to a degree. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Like, see what happens. And for people like in the Twitterverse and even stuff like that, they kind of know I'm more poetic, and I do my blog. But this horror thing is something different, but it's still within my wheelhouse. And sometimes I think taking those risks are just as important, of stepping out of the stable creative expression that you have, so that you actually can learn some new skill sets, kind of get out of the routine, because you could be a very good creative and do the same creative thing, which doesn't make it bad. It's just you can get bogged down even yourself. So taking a risk and doing a different genre, or stepping out, and like me and your sister and stuff, we're doing the drawing challenge this month and getting back to doing art. And it's almost the same fear that I had of the thing, but in a way it felt not safer. That's not quite, but it's like, okay, I've done this before. This is a total different area. Still practice facing that fear of taking a risk. But I love it. This is cool. I love the book. I think the stories in there are interesting, and it taps back. Honestly, it taps back to what I used to write in elementary school when I started. My very first real story was kind of a horror supernatural story.
Yeah. You write stories. You're a writer, but not like expanding your brand, but just kind of what your wheelhouse, just putting another branch in the tree per se and that can be, it sounds like oh, you just wrote about something different. That's easy, but it is a little bit of a risk, and kind of an interesting feeling when you start delving into something that is you kind of know, but is not necessarily your forte, I guess.
When you got you have some of these small little inspirational video things, which again I think is in your wheelhouse, but yet it's not what you are known for to a degree. So what was the genesis of those? Because you've done a couple of them.
So hype videos are great. I like making. I like sports. I like photos. I feel like those so. This last one that I posted, the When Do We Stop Scrolling one, I feel like those are kind of my passion projects, where I feel like I invoke the emotion because I feel that emotion when I'm making them. So I feel like those are my favorite things to make. I love making kind of the short film, and I wish I could do it horizontally, but everybody likes vertical video, so I did it vertical. Whatever. Story for another time. But those are... I know I'm not as good as them because I haven't done as many, obviously. But I like being able to put those out there and kind of showcase, hey, I'm more than just a guy that takes good photos, makes good hype videos. I like to... kind of, once that platform is built that people like the stuff I create, being able to put out something that showcases more of my inner thoughts about just kind of whether it's the creative realm or attention spans on TikTok, things like that. Those are, and the thing about those, I get more nervous posting those than I do almost anything else, because it's a risk. I care a lot more about those, and it's definitely a risk being not as well,
and it's connected to you, and that's that part, that fear.
Yeah, and so I love doing those, but yeah, it like the chances are video that I posted, I was really nervous about, because you don't always know how being vulnerable is going to be received online, especially where now it's like lame to show emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fun to make fun of everybody.
Yeah,
And so
that's a whole nother.
yeah, that's a whole nother video. We've got plans for season 3. But so, third time plugging The Magic of Thinking Big. Listen to it if you haven't. It's a great book. But
Or read.
Yeah, but
Don't forget.
I drive a lot, so
Yeah.
listening's easier. But it talks about how where fear kind of stems from, where fear of taking risks kind of grows, is because you like scientifically cannot imagine an emotion or an experience that you haven't had before. Like you can kind of piece things together. Like I kind of maybe know what like skydiving would feel like and look like, but I don't know the emotions and the feelings that I would have. I can't conceive that if I haven't done it. And so that's where kind of fear stems from. I didn't know where my freelance would end up taking me, and if it would. I was very blessed that my senior photography really took off, because that was what took up the brunt of my summer last year. I could not have conceived what that summer would have looked like, just because I hadn't gone through kind of a summer of doing that and things like that. And so realizing all of this stuff and having the perspective of the positives and negatives of the risk, I think once you kind of piece together a more clear picture of the risk and the outcomes, that really helps you be able to kind of weigh whether you should take the jump, or, I mean, there are some risks that you probably shouldn't take. But creatively,
yeah, that's one part I want to talk about just a little
yeah,
bit later.
let's go for it.
Because the risk of, and my bad for brain freezing my reference to the book about that I mentioned earlier. I could have looked
I only
it
have
up.
2 to choose from.
Yep.
So
But I think that our everyday life and our creative lives, and anybody who is in that realm, that you have to understand why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that actually highlights then what risks are worth the price that might happen, which is failure. Failure is one of the, and we don't talk about that enough, because it does happen. I have not made more than a couple $100 off of writing totally. My blog is free though. You know what I'm saying? I know that, but I don't do ads and stuff. So being unemployed and getting my novel out there and stuff, to be honest, it was a risk taking the job. It was quitting the job, but I didn't do what you did, to be honest. So I was already starting where I need to find a stable income, and I did not rely on my skill set or my writing dream to sustain our family. Understand, because my family is my most important why. My writing, technically a second. And so taking that risk the second time, actually, it's crazy, was very important for lots of reasons. But that's also why I didn't stay and just work off of that novel. And because it was self-published too. Like I had to did go find a job. And now I've done some other risk things, going to Omaha on somebody's invitation to do an open mic. And now here, hopefully in a little while, the state slam poetry team option is coming up, and stuff. So little risk add up too. But if you understand why you're doing what you're doing and your overall picture, then actually which risks are worth it, because you could fail. And
to take that risk, you have to be okay. Kind of like gambling. You have to be, whatever money you decide to gamble, you have to basically say, I am okay if I lose
all that. Yes, that's a good analogy right there. Huh. And a good English teacher.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but he knew a thing or two, I guess. But yeah, you have to be okay with when you take that risk of failing. And obviously, you would not have been okay if you would have taken the risk and failed and had to move out of the house and sell Aaliyah or something like that. And so, yeah, just thinking about your why and kind of your core values is super important for evaluating the risk of each decision and jump that you may take.
Yeah. And that's, I think, more important than even getting the okay, because sometimes we do this. We try to get the okay from everybody around us. But honestly, the people around us sometimes can hold you back too, because by you taking the risk, they take the risk with you. Because and their fears and their anxieties come into play. So if you are true and you understand your why, then you have to be comfortable with what could happen with the loss, but it still actually, I think, directs you and shows you which risk, which things can and are a part of the journey. And then you still have to make the choice to take the risk or do another, or, opportunities come and go and things. But being centered on the why will help you on that. Not trying to get the okay from the world, the okay from even friends and even family, because they feel that fear too. So that's why the why is so important in regards to which risk, why you want to take the risk, what you're really hoping to do.
Yeah, so hopefully we instilled a little wisdom, kind of gave some outlook, some help if you have a decision that you've been lulling over, things like that. Risks are going to be scary no matter what, no matter when, no matter how. They're going to be something that is either healthy in your life or hold you back, and not even, like we talked about, not even just creatively. And so hopefully you guys like this. Season 3 is coming in hot. We are almost already a year into doing this. So that was Season 3, Episode 1 of The Creative Moment. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.